Who's going to read that?
No, I haven't got a good reading voice.
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm too embarrassed. I get.
Huh?
You're too embarrassed.
Too embarrassed.
Which lines are they?
Okay. We're on 214, 215, 216, 217. Is it your first day today? Okay. Do you know anything about this book? No. Have you ever done Maliki fiqh at all? No. Okay. Can I be just stupid? Why do you want to study it then?
I'm interested.
You're interested, okay. We began, as you heard I said before, we began the book of fasting, and we're going to carry on from there. So we've already done the text. Is a teaching verse. It covers aqidah, fiqh, and tasawwuf, and it just deals with daruriyat fi deen. You know what every individual needs to know to practice his personal worship. It doesn't deal with muamalat, because how the traditional syllabus that's taught is you begin with a text called Akhdari, which just deals with purification and prayer. Then you move on to this. After this, you go on to an intermediary text called the Risala of Abu Zayd al-Kairwani, and after that you move on to the Mukhtasar of Sidi Khalil. Fiqh-wise, you're done. What they'd say, you're cooked. Yeah, but you'll find. Have you studied any kind of fiqh before? Little bit. Hanafi?
Yeah.
Okay. This is totally different in the sense that how Medinan fiqh is Imam Malik radhiyallahu anhu, he doesn't come up with anything new. He literally makes a record of the practice of the community that was started by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. While Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Shafi'i, and Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal they're literally starting from scratch, because they are coming up with these. We're going to study, Islamic law or prophetic law. Now, this is how we're going to derive rulings from the Quran. This is how we're going to derive rulings from the Sunnah. With Imam Malik radhiyallahu anhu, he literally left us a record, a blueprint of how Medina functioned, which is a book called the Muwatta of Imam Malik radhiyallahu anhu. Out of the four Imams of fiqh, they all began books. With Imam Abu Hanifa, there are books that are attributed to him. He never wrote a book and taught it. With Imam Shafi'i, he actually wrote the Risala, which is a book on usul. And then he began his detailed fiqh book called Kitab al-Umm. Never completed it. His students completed it. Then Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, the final, not the final, but the four that are well known. He began his Musnad, which is a book of hadith. Never completed it. His son completed it. While Imam Malik radhiyallahu anhu, out of the four Imams, he actually wrote the book and then taught it for 40 years. And literally, the other three Imams actually transmit the book from him. And it's a basis for their madhabs as well. So it's a different way of understanding it. This poem was written 400 years ago. It was written so people could memorize it. We're not, Arabic speakers, and our background is in Arabic, so that's why we're sitting here learning it in English. It was designed so you'd memorize it before you would begin your formal education. So by the time you began your formal education, you knew what the daruriyat of the deen was. If you didn't need to go any further, you just wanted to learn a trade, so you had enough to get on with life. And so for the last 400 years, this has become so popular. Normal schools, maktabs, walaikum salam, where people learn to read and write and learn memorize the Quran. Every Friday, this is what they learn. They memorize this. So by the time someone's finished, now I think would be what's after nursery?
Primary.
Reception.
Yeah. So by the time you've finished reception and begun, your first couple of years, no problem. You've begun, a couple of years of your primary education. You knew this, and then people would go further. And to this day, you go to Morocco, people still know this by heart. And it's not just Morocco, from... have you heard of the word Prophet Maghrib?
Yeah.
Yeah? Maghrib?
Means the West, doesn't it?
Yeah, but what do we mean by the West? Arabic-wise.
I think it's African region, I think.
Okay. It's from, modern-day Tunisia, including Mauritania, all of that, going down to Chad and everywhere. That was the Maghrib. And it's a set syllabus. Wherever you go, that's the syllabus that they'll follow. Akhdari, Ibn Ashir, Risala, Mukhtasar of Sidi Khalil. That's it. Inshallah. Anyway, so we'll make a start. So 214 to 217.
Okay.
Inshallah.
The obligations of the fast are making an intention in the first night, abstaining from intercourse, drinking and eating. 215 is not deliberately vomiting and ensuring that nothing reaches the stomach entering via the ear, nose or eye. 216, the time of the fast is from the appearance of dawn to sunset. Being of sane mind at the beginning of the fast is a condition for its being obligatory.
Okay. We're using a commentary on the poem by someone called Sidi Mayara. Now, Sidi Mayara is a student of the author, but he's a very well-known. He was one of the muftis of Fez, very well qualified scholar in his own right, and he has quite a few works that are of his that are in print. So he says these verses cover the fara'id of fasting, the conditions, the prohibitions. Yeah, so these 4 verses, that's what they're going to cover. The mandatory aspects of the fast, the conditions of the fast, and the prohibitions of the fast. Now, the mandatory or fara'id of the fast are 5. they don't go in order. We follow the order of the poem. Yeah? So the first of them is the intention in the night. Do you understand what's meant by the night? And the reason why the intention is from the night?
It's the beginning of the day. For us.
Yes and no. The reason why it's from the night is because, does anybody remember from last time the definition of the fast? No? Okay. Let's go over that one. Because if you remember the definition, you'll actually understand.
To abstain, absolutely.
Yeah. Go on.
Abstain from the desires
Of the
for a
stomach.
complete day with the intention of drawing close to Allah.
Yeah. More. There's more to it.
Shall I read out? I've got written to abstain from the desires of the stomach and the genitals for a complete day with the intention of getting closer to Allah.
That's it. Now, if you can remember this, you'll remember everything connected with the fast. Yeah, is imsak. Yeah, to abstain for a complete day. Yeah, and it's to abstain from shahwatul batn. Yeah, from the desires of the stomach and the genitals. Yeah, for a full day with the intention of coming close to God. Yeah. Now a complete day. Yeah. So when does the day begin? At sunrise or at dawn? Don't tell me at sunset. Yeah. Because yes, technically it does begin at sunset. But for the fast, the complete day begins at dawn.
Dawn, yeah.
At dawn. Yeah. So because the day for the fast begins at dawn, so you need to make the intention before the day begins. So before dawn is
Night.
night. That's the reason why you make it from the night. Yeah, because it needs to be. It's like, you know, when the fard of a prayer only becomes mandatory for us, you know, to do wudu once, you know, the time of prayer kicks in. We don't need to do it before that. Yeah, but because the ibadah itself will kick in once, you know, the dawn begins, so the intention needs to kick in before that, because the ibadah will begin. So that you need to make the intention from the night before. Yeah. Now, the Prophet ﷺ, the basis for this is the Prophet ﷺ says that you don't have a fast if you haven't made the intention for the night before. So you can't, because we're dealing with a mandatory fast, you can't just get up and say, I'm going to fast today.
Is that every fast?
No.
Just on the first.
With us, with the madhab, because it's a continuous fast, because you fast for a whole month, so and it rolls on. As long as you don't break the fast, you don't have to renew the intention. The mandatory intention is only once at the beginning of the month, on the first day. Yeah?
So after the first day, for example, like the third or fourth day, you wake up, you miss your morning prayer, you wake up after that, you can keep the fast.
No, your intention was, you know, the intention that you make for the fast is, I'm going to fast the month of Ramadan.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay.
If the intention is to fast the whole month of Ramadan. So for whatever reason you break your fast, then you will have to renew your intention. And we're dealing, with the mandatory. The other nafil fasts you make, you can. Because I've heard of because poverty is such that you get up in the morning and there's nothing to eat. Okay, I'll fast today. Yeah. And if you read about some of the great scholars of the past, you will find that Imam Bukhari radhiallahu anhu, on his journeys, he ended up even he survived on chewing leaves of certain trees. So depends on your situation, but we're dealing with the mandatory fast from the beginning of the month. The obligation of the intention is lifted. The recommendation is that you renew it every day, but that's a recommendation. Yeah, the burden of obligation is only once. Are we okay with that? Right? When you renew it every day, depend on your own wording. If you go back to the definition, because the definition of the fast is to approach God by that action. So if in your wording of the intention, bung that in. Yeah. So yes, I'm going to fast the month of Ramadan. Why? I want to get close to God. Yeah? And when you are renewing it every day, yes, I'm fasting today because I want to get close to God. But the daily one is a recommendation.
So, just another question. For the intention, I know that you can say it in your heart, and as long as you believe it, that's good. Is it better to speak the intention out loud, or is it? Which way is preferred? Which way is better?
You need to understand why you make the intention. Why you make the intention is so you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's the sole reason for the intention, is so you know, why am I doing this? Yeah. So now, do you need to say it? No, you don't need to, because, for instance, when I get up now and I want to close the door, I've got up to close the door, so I don't need to articulate that. Yeah? And that's the understanding that Imam Maliki gives. He says that when you get up to go to do wudu, why do you need to now, when you get to the water, I'm going to make wudu now? You got up to make wudu. Yeah? Or you get up to go to the mosque. Do you need to make the intention now to pray? Your very actions speak your intention. The famous hadith that actions are known by their intentions. So when you're doing something, you need to know, why am I doing this? Yeah? Does that make sense? And that's for anything that you do. It can be to do with your deen or your dunya. So when you know why you're doing it, that's the intention behind it. Okay. The second obligation of the fast is to leave. In the definition it said to leave the desires of the stomach and the genitals. So here is to leave any sexual intercourse. So it means that there shouldn't be any emission of semen or prostatic fluid from dawn till sunset. Because the Prophet ﷺ said that the limit of the fast is from dawn till its sunset. Now, if there's an emission from the sexual organs, what you've not caused it, that's overlooked. There's no qada. You do not need to make up a fast, and your fast is correct. It's the same with if there's prostatic fluid has come out. You've not caused it. You've not thought about something. You've not done anything. It's just, for instance, you're during sleep. You had a wet dream. You wake up and your clothes are wet. There's no qada, and your fast is correct, and that is for men and women. So that was the second mandatory aspect of it. Are we okay with that? Yeah. The third is that you leave eating and drinking from dawn till sunset. Now that's self-explanatory, but it's a fundamental. Just a side note. What happens if I had to drink by mistake or out of forgetfulness?
It's overlooked.
Huh?
It's overlooked.
It's overlooked. Be okay with that one? It's overlooked? Okay. Hold that thought. I'm praying. My wudu breaks. I didn't cause it. It just broke. Is it overlooked?
You have to renew your wudu and then come back.
And begin again.
Yeah, and then come
Why?
back.
It just happened. I did it. I had no control over it. Why can't that be overlooked? It's not a trick question.
It's a requirement.
It's a condition. Purity is a condition for the validity of prayer. If you break the condition, you break your worship. The condition for fasting is you abstain from food and drink from dawn till dusk. Yeah? You break it, you've broken your fast, mate. Because you can't bring that hadith forward. Because we don't, the understanding of the school is we do not make the exceptions the rule. The rule is always the rule. The exception never becomes the rule. Yeah. The understanding of the school is you carry on fasting. Yeah. Your fast is, yes, you've broken it, but the fast, you've got to understand how our jurists, and this is across the board, it's not just Maliki centric. The fast is considered as, the month of Ramadan is like a person. Yeah, it has its sanctity and it has its honour. So you've got to respect the sanctity of the month and honour it. So if for whatever reason you're not fasting, don't go around flaunting. You're not fasting because you're not honouring and you're not respecting the sanctity. So you'll carry on fasting.
So Sheikh, you said that if you're fasting and you accidentally eat something, it's broken the fast, but you carry on fasting.
You carry on, you complete the day.
But then, because that's a condition of the fast. If wudu is a condition of the prayer, when you if you were to break your wudu during salah, you wouldn't carry on with the salah.
Of course you wouldn't.
So then why would you?
No,
carry on
of course
with the
you
fast?
wouldn't. Because you see, I can't begin the day again. I've got to wait for the other day. Do you understand?
But
I can go and do wudu again.
So with that fast, you have to make it up after.
No, you'll have to come up with another fast.
I know this is an odd question. Let's say you're in a really hot climate and you've accidentally broken your fast.
Yes.
Can you then just, because you've broken your fast, it's really hot.
Yeah.
You just want a quick drink.
Yeah.
Because you're not fasting technically.
Okay.
It's really hard anyway.
You know, when we come to the end of this section, we will cover it. Yeah. Because there are times where when it's a wajib to break your fast, and there are times where it's recommended. It's my fault. It's my fault.
Oh, it's his phone.
Oh, shut the phone. I was knocking
Thought it was a
door.
knock.
Let me turn it off.
That's quite good. I like that.
It annoys people at home.
Imagine it.
But does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the usul, you've got to look at it as a whole. That the condition for the fast is you abstain from dawn till dusk from food and drink. It's a condition. Yeah. Just as tahara is a condition for salat, and it's from beginning till end. Yeah. And for the fast, it's a condition that you abstain from beginning till end. Okay. Are we okay on that one? The fourth mandatory fara'id of obligation of the fast is, don't vomit. Yeah, don't force yourself to vomit. Certain people, they used to say it was a woman's thing, but men do suffer from it as well. Where they eat and they vomit again. What's it called?
Bulimia.
Bulimia. Yeah. Men and women suffer from it, and it's a recognised. It's a physical illness, but it's a psychological illness as well. But you've got to stop forcing yourself to, vomit from dawn till dusk. Now, if you're overwhelmed, where you don't have any control, yeah. If you vomit, certain people, do. First couple of fasts, they keep vomiting the system to adjust. That does not break your fast. Vomiting doesn't. Yeah. But that's where you're overwhelmed. What you've got to do is don't swallow it. If it comes out, let it come out.
Sorry, Sheikh, just going back to point 3 and 2. 3, if by accident you eat or drink, you carry on.
You carry on. You complete the day. But you come back with a qada.
Sure. And for number 2, for example, if you had a wet dream,
yeah,
you carry on.
You carry on.
and
no,
then you make up.
No, the wet dream where you have not caused it. It's really important. You're not the cause of it.
Yeah.
Yeah? It's over. There's no qada, and your fast is correct.
Okay. So you don't have to make it up.
No.
Okay.
But if you eat accidentally, drink accidentally, you voided your fast. Yeah? But you carry on. But you've got to come back with another fast. Yeah. Okay. Where I've actually seen this. People sleep, like a qailula or midday, with their mouths open, and a fly goes down. Yeah. Now they have no control over that. Now the fly going down and him swallowing it or her swallowing it does not invalidate the fast. Just as you vomit, you're overwhelmed, you have no control over it, it's overlooked. So the fly going down your throat or you swallow it is overlooked. Now, Ibn Rushd and Ibn al-Qasim, they don't make any difference on these 2 points. If it's a mandatory fast or supererogatory, nafil fast, the ruling is the same. Okay. 5th one. You shouldn't let the 5th mandatory condition is nothing should breach your stomach. So nothing of food or drink should reach the stomach.
Don't intentionally
Now, Sidi Miyara says, that's the first digestion. Food goes down to your stomach. And then, from the stomach, nutrients go to the rest of your organs and limbs. So, nothing of food or drink should reach the stomach.
Sheikh, why has the author felt the need to express both of these separately? He must have a meaning, obviously. So he said leave food and drink is the 3rd wajib, and then why has he said nothing should reach the stomach? Because surely if you leave, if something goes in your stomach, it's either food or drink. So that technically they seem synonymous to me, but obviously there's a reason for why he's put them in different categories. Or
when you study law, even in English law, they make sure that the obvious things are ruled out. Yeah. So you leave food and drink. Yeah. Okay, I've left it, but I could use other means to get things to my stomach.
Yeah, because here it's mentioned via the ear.
No, he's coming to it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so nothing should reach the stomach.
Sure.
Yeah, by any of the openings from the top of your body. Yeah, so the mouth, nose, eyes, ears. I've had quite a few GPs and other doctors who have taught this, and every one of them, I've got a set question, because I know that from the eye and the nose something can get to your throat. Mm-hmm. So I always ask the question, can something from the ear get to your throat? And the answer is always no. But there is, it's amazing how the ancient jurists, but if you're eardrum is perforated,
then it can. Yeah.
then it can. Yeah. So technically the ear as well, but they say it's near to impossible. But as a rule of thumb, from the top of your body, from your head, nothing from any of the openings, nothing should reach your stomach. But if it reaches abnormally, from the bottom of the openings, from the bottom, they're overlooked. God help us. No, but the thing is that, the commentator does mention this. Yeah. Now, usually, again, we're looking at from dawn to sunset. Nothing should reach. Yeah. So if water or whatever is reached through the back passage, it will be because it has to reach through normally. Yeah. Now, people usually now ask, what happens if I'm asthmatic? This is nothing from the text; it's from you. And I've actually asked those doctors who've sat with me. They say, God has designed the body, but when we breathe through the same throat, and we swallow through the same throat. But when we swallow, it goes down a different passage. And when we breathe, it goes down a different passage. So when we breathe, there's a flap that takes the breath to the lungs, and when we swallow or drink, the flap takes it down to the stomach. Yeah? Now, don't go, so can I smoke as well? No. But if you're asthmatic and you really need to, it won't break your fast. Yeah? There are people out there that will say, yes, it will, but it actually doesn't go down to your stomach. Because he's saying it shouldn't reach your stomach. But again, it's medication, it's not food. I know the translator, Sidi Laraki, says, but he says that, Tarkul Isalu Shay, yeah, that not a thing should reach, but he says, reach the stomach. Yeah? So even if Sidi Laraki says that, not a thing should go down your throat, but the thing is, it says it shouldn't reach the stomach. So if for whatever usually if your asthma is really bad and you need to take it, quite regularly, you should be fasting anyway. But what happens is that a lot of people who are asthmatic, their asthma is under control, but now and then they will need to take a puff.
Yeah.
So that will not invalidate your fast. Yeah. Also, injections. Will they? Yes.
By the same logic, if you inject, it's not going into the stomach.
Yeah.
It's in your bloodstream. So
yeah. Okay. This discourse happened. This actually happened in the 1930s between Tunisia was ruled by the Turks. So how their system worked was that they had a Shaykh al-Islam, someone who headed each madhab. So in Tunisia, the population is Maliki, but the government, the Turkish government, they're Hanafi. So they used to have a Shaykh al-Islam who was a Hanafi, and then they had a Shaykh al-Islam who was Maliki. So the Maliki Shaykh al-Islam, Shaykh Ja'id, rahmatullah alayhi, he gave an opinion that taking an injection while fasting won't break your fast. The Hanafi Shaykh al-Islam was up in arms. No, it breaks the fast. I said, how? He says it goes into your bloodstream. Yeah? Yeah, but it goes into your bloodstream. Goes into your liver. Yeah? And the liver's connected to the stomach. It's not. It's how people... But the whole thing was that the end result was the Maliki Shaykh al-Islam, he asked him, what is the reason why we fast?
The purpose, yeah.
What's the reason?
To draw close to Allah.
Yeah, taqwa. If you read the ayah, yeah, it talks about taqwa. So even if you do have, it's a point of taqwa. It's not to starve. It's not to kill yourself. Yeah. But again, if you are diabetic and you need to take insulin, you shouldn't be fasting in the first place. You should, if you're on insulin, you shouldn't. I know quite a few, families in Birmingham. They say, "Look, I'm going to be lying on the sofa anyway." So they fast, but they shouldn't fast. You shouldn't put a burden on your body that God does not put on it. People who are on metformin, that's easily controlled because you just take it in the morning and then in the evening. With insulin, you have to, there's a set time. And you have to take it at a certain time, and if you don't have to, you don't need to.
Metformin, is that tablet form?
It's tablet form. It's controlled. If it's controlled by tablet form, and you certain people just can't cope.
Yeah.
But if your diabetes is under control and you can fast, then fine. Because majority of the surgeries that I know, a lot of the diabetic nurses, they're trained, they already know this. So when a Muslim goes and say, I'm going to fast, what do you advise? They say, no, don't fast. My advice is always, if your GP is a Muslim, and by Muslim I mean not by name, a practicing GP, talk to them, take their advice. Otherwise, the general advice that majority of GPs and nurses are given is that if it's an illness that doesn't have a cure, you don't have to fast. But if it's a short-term illness where you're going to get better, then you delay your fast. When you get better, you make up your fast. Okay. So, those were the 5 fara'id of fast. Is there any thing that you didn't understand or you want clarified or you need clarification for? It was a self-explanatory.
Just in regards to if you eat or drink accidentally, but you should still carry on.
Yes.
Why?
Why? I already. You've got to understand that the month has a hurma. Yeah, the month has a sanctity. Again, in our society, the month doesn't have a sanctity. I know even in majority Muslim countries, the sanctity of the month is not as it used to be. I'll give an example. The place where I was born, the tandoors, the clay ovens. because Ramadan always comes majority of the time in summer. Because the word Ramadan comes from intense heat. So as a cycle, it usually comes in the summer. So in the Punjab, the tandoor is usually lit in the summer. They don't use it in the winter. And in Ramadan, it would never be lit in the daytime. No one would actually cook. Even people who didn't have to fast, they wouldn't cook. They would whatever was left, they would use that. So till it came near to iftar or sahur. But now the shops are open, the cafes are open, the restaurants are open. You see the smoke coming out of the tandoors. Society has moved on. But the ideal is that you respect the sanctity of the month.
What about in a situation where you don't even realise that you've done it?
But then you do realise you've done it.
No, but as in, let's say if there was a woman who's cooking food, and she's fasting, and let's say she just tasted the food.
The tasting one we're going to cover later.
Yeah.
But that won't break her fast.
Okay.
She spits it out. Yeah. But where you accidentally break your fast, eat or drink, you carry on. Unless you've done it for a valid reason where your life is at stake or you need to take some medication or whatever. Okay. We'll move on to the conditions for the fast.
$217.
No. It's the same.
Is it? Oh, sorry, we haven't. Okay,
yeah.
My mistake.
No, we're still on the. Those 4 lines cover, the obligations, the conditions, and the prohibitions. So what we've done is we've covered the 5 obligations. So the conditions of obligation of the fast are: you need to be a Muslim. You need to be sane. You need to be pubescent. You need to be healthy. You need to be resident. And you need to be free from menstrual bleeding or postnatal bleeding. Now, these conditions have to be met. If you're not a Muslim, it's not an obligation upon you. If you're insane, no. If you're not pubescent, one of my sons has been fasting when he was 7. It's just like, you can't stop children. It's only when they're adult that they don't. No, because they see the whole family fasting, so they want to do it. But it's not an obligation upon them. Again, the condition of health. It's really, really important that you don't put your health at risk. Yeah? You don't put it at risk. So if you've got an illness that requires regular medication, then that is a priority. you need to be resident. So if you're travelling, it's not an obligation. So if you know you're travelling, you're permitted to break your fast. If there is, difficulty attached to it. The bleeding from menstruation and postnatal is a prohibition. We'll cover that later. Now, someone who loses their sanity, someone who has fainting spells or some kind of schizophrenia, again, if they're under medication, they should stick to that. But if they have they lose their senses just before subh, the day's gone, they don't need to fast. But if they lose their senses, but if they regain their senses just before subh, they have to fast the day. Now, if they lose it, if they lose their senses for more than a day, they would have to make a qada. But if it's less than a day, they won't have to make up a fast. But in those scenarios, they would. My advice would always be that if it's a physical illness, then they need to get medical help. And if they say that it's a long-term thing, then another rule will kick in. Because if it's something that they have to take medication for, then schizophrenics don't fast because they've got to take regular medication. So people who are suffering from mental illness, and it's something that you find that within the Muslim community, it's increasing rather than decreasing. Are we okay on these conditions? I know there's the self-explanatory ones. The prohibitions of the fast. So someone who was postnatal bleeding or menstrual bleeding, fasting is they're prohibited. Now, we're talking about, the wajib fast, not, the nafil fast. If the bleeding finishes in the night and they've taken the ghusl, they have to fast. That's for the menstrual bleeding and the postnatal bleeding. If it begins while they've begun the fast, the day begins and the bleeding begins, they will make up those days. They will be prohibited from fasting. Majority of women who are still, still in the age of menstruation, they'll only fast 2 weeks. Because the menstrual bleeding with us maximum is a fortnight. They will always have to make up those fasts. Now, I was asked of a scenario. Ramadan's going to begin in a week's time, but she hasn't made up those 2 weeks fasting. So what does she do? She has to. She has to make up those fasts. So, but the problem is, she's got 2 weeks fast, and Ramadan's going to begin in a week's time. She begins to fast, making up those fasts. When Ramadan kicks in, whatever's missed is overlooked. Which is quite easy for women in that sense. But it's important that what's taken into consideration is that they make every effort to make it up. We don't have this thing that you can pay someone. You've got to make it up. It's your obligation. Yeah.
Would we be covering anything related to, for example, a person who for some reason didn't fast for first 20 years of his life, and then he decides to start fasting?
And we won't be able to cover that.
Okay. So in that situation, does he not have to, is there no form to pay for all those years? Or would he just have to make them up as long as he can, as long as he lives?
I usually don't give opinions on this,
okay.
but I'll give you mine.
Sure.
He'd feed.
He'd feed, yeah.
Yeah. Because the thing is that, if you... Islam does not put a burden on you that you can't bear. Because we don't know why he didn't fast. Because you need to know... to give a detailed opinion, you need detailed information. But rule of thumb is, I don't want to know the details. If you've got, something to, with prayers, you've got to make them up. You can't pay someone. Hanafis do have this option that they can pay someone
for prayers.
Yeah. It's really interesting, that one. If you die and you haven't, you can leave. I had so many years of prayers to make up, so they can actually pay someone to pray, or you can feed someone to pray. It's really amazing how the mind on that works. The thinking is there, and the Hanafis are not the only ones that do that. so I'm not having a go at Hanafis. The Shia do it, the Hanbalis do it, so they're not the only ones. From the Malikis, we have one Imam who did hold this opinion, so we leave the opinion with him. As a rule of thumb, your burden, you carry it. No one else can carry your burden. And this is where how the school's principles come in, is when God speaks, you shut up. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says La waziratan wizran ukhra, that no one else can carry your burden, that's final. So if you bring me a hadith, I will read you that ayah. You bring me another hadith, I will read you that ayah. You bring me 1,000,000 hadith, I'll recite that ayah 1,000,000 times. Because the word of God is final. That when God says that no one else will carry your burden of another, then that is it.
Does that also include, like, for example, because I'm most of my family are Hanafi, so when, for example, someone misses a fast, they wouldn't give money for someone to do the fast. They would give money to sort of remove the need for them to do that fast themselves.
No, there's expiation you pay, but that is something that God has given us license to do. Okay. But that is, we'll cover it at the end of this section on fasting, because here God has given us 3 choices. You fast, you free a slave, you feed 60 people. Yeah. Now the madhab, this is the understanding of the madhab. The madhab, other scholars, madhabs give you a choice. Here our madhab has a preference. It says you fast, who benefits from that? You've made the mistake. Yeah. When you free someone, you free one person. But when you feed 60 people. So 60 people, compared to 1, 60 will always win hands down. But we'll cover that when we get to it. Okay. Are we okay on the prohibition of fasting? By the way, just a point of usul, and it might be something that I'm always trying to remind you of what we've learned before. Why is the woman prohibited from fasting? I know it's the obvious that she's bleeding, but I want you to think the reason why. We have covered it. No? Okay. It's all to do with purity. Because what you've got to understand is that, the whole, it's not, by purity I don't mean that, because she's bleeding, she's impure. No. You should never go there. Because she's bleeding, that does not make her impure. I'll give you because our understanding is what we have from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting in itikaf, and because his room opened onto the courtyard of the mosque, so he put his head inside the door, and our Sayyidah Aisha radhiyallahu ta'ala anha, comb my hair. She goes, I'm bleeding in my monthly cycle. So he smiled. He says, but it's not in your hand, is it? The bleeding does not make her impure. It's just, how Allah has designed the body that, it bleeds. The whole reason is the deen every aspect of our life is governed by the laws of purification. Yeah? Now, tell me an ibadah that you do in which you do not purify. Do you know of any act of worship for which we do not purify? I mean, ritually purify ourselves.
The God.
That's true, you know. That's one. But even that one, can someone remind me what are you doing by when
itself? It's a purification.
In itself, it's a purification. So you see, even that is purification. You know, the act of giving zakat is the act of purifying your wealth. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So every act of worship that we do, we're purifying ourselves. So because the woman is in that state, she is unable to purify herself. Because of the bleeding, she can't purify herself. So that's why she doesn't fast or pray. Does that make sense? Yeah. It's got nothing to do with, you know, menstruation or bleeding, postnatal bleeding. Okay. So we've done, you know, the fara'id, the conditions and the prohibitions. We move on to, you know, makruhat, things that are makrooh. Verse 218. Just 218. Sure.
218. It is makrooh to touch a woman or allow thoughts of a sexual nature, that is, as long as one remains free of any emission of pre-seminal fluid, otherwise such things are forbidden.
Okay. Now, you know, the whole thing of fasting. Is anybody familiar with how the ayah opens in the Quran? No? كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم. That, you know, fasting was made an obligation upon you as it was made on the people before you. So, you know, fasting as an act of worship is not, you know, something new to people of faith. You find that, you know, the people before us, you know, the Jews and Christians, it's like we're in, you know, the fast of Lent now. I know Christians just they've made it they'll give up chocolate or they'll give up. No, they've actually gone away from the fast itself. If you go and look up historically, it was actually a fast. You find that, you know the in Pakistan, you know, the Christians, they actually fast. Yeah. They actually do fast. They don't like here give up. And you know, the Jews have their fast. Now, what it was with the fast, everything, you know, the physical contact with your partner was prohibited. So that's what you find, that, you know, initially, even within Islam, people found it difficult because you could not have any kind of relationship with your wife or husband, even at night. And then, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it easy. He said at night you can. Now, what this covers is what's makrooh. Now, by makrooh, you've got to understand this does not mean you know, how is it usually translated?
Disliked, yeah.
Disliked, okay. I don't like the word dislike. It doesn't actually give you the right understanding. So, if I said, I dislike this, what am I saying?
You'd prefer if you didn't do it.
Prefer if you didn't do it, okay. But dislike shows that, as an understanding is very light. It's not something heavy. Like, when you say, this is prohibited, that's heavy. You can't go near it. So when you say dislike, okay, I just don't like it. The understanding that, goes with makrooh is abhorrent. You abhor it. Yeah. Still halal, by the way. Makrooh, from a principal point of view, is still from the categories of halal. It's not haram. Yeah? But it carries more the meaning of abhorrent rather than, just dislike. Yeah? But don't go, to the extreme that it's haram. Yeah? So what Sidi Mayara says that, for the one fasting, they shouldn't, touch or think. Yeah? If they're safe, if they themselves are safe by touching or thinking, and it does not lead to emission of prostatic fluid. Now, if more appropriate would be that if it leads to emission of semen, then it becomes haram. Then it becomes prohibited. So it's the same ruling. In not, touching, thinking.
Would that be for women as well?
Exactly the same. What you've got to understand is that, the books deal with men because it's usually the men that don't have control. Yeah? But the thinking or kissing, caressing, is it caressing?
Caressing, yeah.
Yeah, that's what they mean by touch. Playing with yourself. If they say that if you're safe, that there's only it's not going to lead to emission of prostatic or discharge of semen, then it's makrooh. If it's going to lead to that, it's haram. And that's, the well-known position, the mashhur position within the school, the well-known position within the school.
If you don't know that, the pre-seminal fluid, because often you don't realise it's happening.
You actually do. Because the thing is that that part of your body is very sensitive. So when it gets wet, you're going to know that there's been a discharge. So what you need to before I go further, what happens is, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell the men? Because men are prone to this. That's why the books don't cover, women, because women don't have that much free time because they're fasting. Yeah, they're having to look after the children and the house, and if they're working, they're going to work as well. While the men are fasting and in their free time, God knows what they're thinking about, or playing with themselves, and that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing. But what you find is that if you go and read in the Quran, Allah asks men to do something to stop all this. What does He do? عاكفين في المساجد. Get out of the house. Get away from the women. Yeah? Go to the masjid. So what that does is when you're fasting, you occupy yourself in worship. Get out of all these distractions. People will if they're home, they're still on their phone, they're still on their tablets or computers or TVs. When you're out of the house, in the mosque, you're away from these distractions. And that's what do you remember when we covered the eclipse prayer? Yeah. Now, why the Prophet ﷺ legislated that was, to protect us, from blinding ourselves, from going out and looking directly at the sun. And here, yes, these acts are makrooh. They will lead to haram if you carry on. Yeah. So how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, protected us in this, He says, get away. Yeah. But He's made us, so He knows our faults. So we're going to do what we're going to do. What you've got to do is don't let it go to that extreme. Yeah? Don't let it go to that extreme. So the ranking of the makruhat, the least is thinking. Yeah? So you start thinking about these actions, then looking, yeah, then kissing, then touching or caressing, then playing, so that's the how it goes up in so the least thinking, then it goes up looking, okay, then kissing, then touch, then playing. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, so Shaykh, if the pre-summer food has been released, then your fast technically is void, invalid, and then but you have to continue your fast.
No, you've caused it.
Yeah.
You've caused it.
Yeah.
Because do you remember we already covered where you've had no cause of it, there's been a discharge without you having any control.
Yeah.
There's no qada, your fast is fine. Where you've caused it, you pay for it, mate. Yeah. So if you're safe from doing all that, there's going to be no discharge of semen or prostatic fluid. It will stay in the category of makrooh. Otherwise, if it does, then it becomes haram. Now, if there's doubt Yeah? If there's doubt, like you were saying before, there's two positions. Usually, when jurists say two positions, they means yes or no. But what Sidi Khalil says that, precaution is it's haram. Why? Because it's worship. It's ibadah. You can't take a risk. There shouldn't be any doubt. And Imam Lakhmi, he says that, just because you're safe at one scenario doesn't mean you're going to be safe in the next scenario. So in the first scenario where you're safe will be it's makrooh, and the next scenario is going to be haram. Because the whole the word that the author has used in the word poem is da'ban. Da'ban is when you continue. It's like you don't learn from your mistake. So because you continue, it'll lead to that discharge. Because it can happen again. If just by thought or looking, if the male member becomes erect, it's still makrooh. You can stop. Yeah. Only where it goes further. Yeah. That's what they're saying, that you've got to, and that's why he's saying thinking, looking, kissing, touching, playing. And again, it's more to do with men than women. But if it happens, the same ruling will apply to male and female. Is there any questions on that? Okay. 219 and 220. We're still, on the category of makrooh, but this is a different.
219. They considered it makrooh to taste something like food from a cooking pot and to engage in idle talk. Being overcome by vomiting or swallowing a fly may be overlooked. 220. As can the dust from the work of craftsmen and from streets, or the use of a dry miswak, and likewise if one awakes in a state of janaba.
Okay. Now, again, this is the next category of things that are makrooh. So, when someone's cooking, it doesn't have to be a woman. If you taste, salt or how sweet or how much, what spice you need to put in, it's makrooh. It's not haram, because you're tasting it and then you're spitting it out. You're not swallowing it. You've got to make sure that you don't swallow, because if you swallow, then it goes for the next step. Has anybody been to Fez?
At the airport.
You're from Maknes.
Yeah.
No, but they have Souq al-Asl. You taste, don't you?
Yeah.
They have markets of honey. So they always give you. They used to on a piece of bread. Now they give it on a spoon, and you always taste it. So even if you need to taste, how sweet the honey is, it's makrooh, it's not haram. Also, if the text is saying that chewing a date, chewing it to feed the child, or chewing some food, not swallowing the food, just chewing it, so you can feed the child. It's makrooh, it's not haram. Also, just talking a lot, just blabbering, it's makrooh. Qadi Iyad, he says you bring your fast to life with lot of dhikr and Quran, rather than just talking. And see, the Mayara says that it's talk which has no benefit. So if you're talking and there's benefit behind it, that's not what's makrooh. So it's talk that has no benefit. The vomit and the fly we've already covered. So again, it's makrooh, but it doesn't break your fast. With the vomit is where you're overwhelmed, you just vomit it out, or a fly goes down your throat, it's overlooked. There's no qada for these, and they're all overlooked. Now, someone who works in a flour mill, flour's he's going to end up inhaling the flour. Because he's in that environment, it's overlooked. Also, people who work outdoors, and when they're digging up roads and all that, and the dust, even the fumes, they're all overlooked. Now, has anyone ever tried to do a miswak with a dry piece of stick? Yeah. Really dry. What happens?
It's not very pleasant.
The bristles break off as well.
Yeah, and it sticks in your mouth.
Yeah.
That's why it's makrooh. There's more chance it'll actually cause you to vomit, because little bits might go down your throat and cause you to vomit. So talking about miswak, so when you're fasting, can you use one? No, yes.
It's not haram.
Well, look, it's makrooh,
Yeah.
using a dry one. So using a wet one, of course not. So it's not problematic. You've got to understand the underlying reasoning behind the miswak. I think all of us are familiar where the Prophet ﷺ said that if I didn't see it as a burden on my community, I would make them use it for each prayer. So Qadi Abdul Wahab Baghdadi, rahmatullah alayhi, he says that, we now know the underlying reason why the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is great emphasis on using the miswak is dental hygiene. Yeah? So fasting is no exception to the rule. The rule is that you use dental hygiene, toothbrush, toothpaste, mouthwash, floss, whatever you need to do, you use it all the time. Yeah? Now, why should the exception be made for fasting when it's the greatest need at that time, isn't it? Yeah? So now, people will bring the hadith. The scent, the breath of the one fasting is sweeter than musk. Yeah? It's a pity that people haven't read the commentaries on it. Where does Allah come and smell your breath? Not here. Yeah? When you die and you wake up on the Day of Judgment, yes. That's what majority of the commentators tell you. No. When you're fasting, don't stop using. But what you've got to do is be cautious. Don't use too much toothpaste. Dentists usually say that you only use a little bit anyway. You don't need to go over the top. Yeah. So use the toothbrush, use the toothpaste, but be careful. Yeah. But you've got to make sure that your mouth is clean. And if you can, usually, a lot of the breath is more to do with dental hygiene than your fasting. Now, if you get up and you're in the state of junub, that should not stop you from fasting. Yeah. If you have to eat, then take the ghusl. It's makrooh, but it's not haram. Is there any thing else that from here is not clear? Yes.
So, let's say with toothpaste.
Yes.
Obviously, the same thing would apply in the sense that don't allow it to go down
yes.
the stomach, etc.
That's why you use a little bit
and just spit it out.
Yeah.
So, in regards to mouth, saliva in the mouth,
yeah.
I find that when I'm fasting, saliva will build up in my mouth, even talking, and then
yes.
I'll feel like I have to swallow it, otherwise I'd constantly be spitting all day, and obviously you can't do that. So is it okay to swallow your own saliva?
Right. Where is the saliva? It's already in the body.
Yeah.
It's not external. We're talking about external food and stuff going in, not internal. Saliva should be. It's something natural. And if it's a really hot day and your mouth keeps drying, swirling water and spitting it out is absolutely fine. It's not problematic at all. So if you're near and you need to swirl some water and to cool your mouth, it's not problematic. So we're okay with, yeah? The practical thing for us is the dental hygiene. I know someone from Canada gave this opinion quite some time ago, that if you're fasting and you have a shower and the steam from it's going a bit too far. Yeah, just open the window. Yeah, because the thing is that how long do? No, let me take that back. I know people who take hours in the shower. Yeah, but the thing is, if it is problematic, because if you're in a certain environment, for instance, work environment, and the dust is overlooked, and if you're in that shower thing, if there is steam building up, how much are you going to inhale? It's not going to go down your throat, is it? Well, you've got to make sure is that nothing goes down your throat.
Would that be the same for Bakhur?
Bakhur, no. It's something that this text doesn't cover. Scent, any kind of perfume, no. Male or female. So if you need to, do use, certain people sweat more than others. If you need to use deodorant, the roll-on rather than the spray. Mm-hmm. If you can get something without any perfume, that's preferable. Yeah.
Okay. So musk and oud, if you just wipe them.
No. You're not even allowed, oil, because historically, the Arabs used to use a lot of oil, so the oil used to drip down. So there was danger. You could taste. When you do actually oil it, you can actually taste it. Mm. Yeah. So that they would say no.
Okay.
Yeah, but people apply really God knows what. I'm a very soap and water person myself. I'm being forced to use oil now because my skin dries up as age. Mm. So very little if you need to, because certain people suffer from eczema, whatever. Those are excused anyway. When you're fasting, you've got to make sure that nothing will distract, because the whole day is in worship, because you bring your fast to life with dhikr and tilawah. So you're always top of your mind should be God. Again, we've got responsibilities of work and whatever, so we do need to pay attention. But other than that, no. Because of with work or study, we're dealing with other people, so you don't want to be smelling to high heaven. Yeah. So if you need to take a toothbrush or something with you, fine. Deodorant, if you can use unperfumed ones, is better. If you need to use a product, if it is not perfumed, that's better. Oil wise, I don't know people who take a dip in it. So very little would be excused. But you've got to make sure that the taste of that will not be, because the whole thing of traditional perfume was it was burnt, the bakhur. Mm-hmm. So it goes down and you can taste it. No.
So Sheikh, you're saying that you can't put some oud on you?
No scent, no perfume. You don't need it.
So that technically bakhur would break your fast?
No, yeah, you don't burn, bakhur when you're fasting. the agarbattis or whatever sprays. No. I upset so many people. You go to the mosque to pray, and they start passing those and rub on. I said, no. Says it's sun. I says yes, it is, but it's makrooh for me. You just try to. The whole state of the fast is as simple as possible. Okay, 221.
Sorry, Sheikh, one more thing.
Yeah, go on.
What about even if it's non-scented, like beard oil?
Muslim men have been they've had beards for God knows how long. Yeah, and people have had beards for God knows how long. Suddenly, beards become fashionable, and this new product, called beard oil comes on the thing. Yeah, use some olive oil.
Mm. Yeah, that's what I mean.
It doesn't cost you anything.
Okay. So olive oil would be fine if you use just a drop.
Just a drop, or mustard oil or sunflower oil. Because I know that someone I think it's from Canada. They every site you go on, he's there. Beard oil, halal beard oil, as if there's haram beard oil. It's just that. People have always used. So if you do need to, a little bit, don't go over the top. And the thing is, if you do need to go over the top, if you do it in the night, so if remnants of it remains, it's okay. Yeah. Rather than putting on scent while fasting.
Yeah. Sheikh, with mouthwashes, people often go full-fledged, when they use it, all over the place inside.
No.
Just keep it to the mouth.
If you don't need to use it, don't use
mouthwash.
it. Mouthwash. Yeah. The toothbrush is easier. Yeah. If you don't use a toothbrush, if you floss and you use a mouthwash, but little. The taste is not a problem. People say that toothpaste, the taste. Well, miswak has a taste here. Yeah. But the whole reason is that is hygiene, dental hygiene, and that's right through. I always comment. Look at how far the dental industry has developed in the West and in the Muslim world is. Yeah. Well, the Prophet ﷺ laid great emphasis on dental hygiene. Okay. Anything else? Okay. 221.
Making the intention just once is enough for the obligation to fast consecutive days, except if interrupted by something which prevents this fasting consecutively.
Okay. Again, that the obligation, this is Ibn Ashir, is that the fast is consecutive. Yeah. So because the fast is consecutive, so someone who is resident correctly and he is fasting for the whole month, that will suffice for him. But if they break the fast for whatever reason, then they will have to. Yeah? Otherwise, one intention for the whole month will suffice. Yeah? Now, what will negate that consecutive is if you travel, yeah, illness, menstrual bleeding, and the understanding of this whole verse is that the intention will suffice for the whole month unless there are reasons for it.
Sheikh, we're not discussing the recommendations, or are we done with the Makroohat?
The thing is that, what you've got to understand is that, the text only deals with daruri fi din. Yeah? The bare necessities. I think all of you are too old. Do you remember Yogi Bear?
Yeah.
The bare necessities.
Yeah, I was just thinking that actually.
Yeah, it only deals with the bare necessities. So the recommendations are recommendations. Why the makruhat and haram are dealt with, those are important. Yeah. So have you got something that you want to ask about the recommendations?
No, just...
He won't deal with it. He won't.
Okay.
Because you'll find that the recommendations... the piece of string, how long is it? Yeah.
There's a spider.
Just move this side, or are you okay? I'll just leave the spider.
No, he's going up. It's okay.
He's running away, don't worry.
Yeah, I'll just leave the spider alone.
Listening to the lecture.
No, there's it's not going to harm us.
Yeah, no, just in case it.
Yeah, that's why. So if you move, it's better. Is it bothering you? Otherwise, we can get rid of it.
Fine.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. So we actually do deal with two recommendations. Yeah. 222.
It is recommended to be quick in making the iftar after the fast, and likewise to delay the suhoor pre-dawn meal prior to the fast.
Okay. Now, that's the only recommendation. That you delay the suhoor as far as possible. Yeah. And when it comes to breaking the fast, do it as quick as possible. Now, Sidi Meira quotes, Abu Zayd al-Qayrawani from his Risala, that he says it's sunnah, yeah, to do these actions. So, but it's important that the condition for these being recommendation is you have got to be certain that the dawn has not begun and the sun has set. Okay? It's really important. And with this, I personally don't agree with how the timetables are made, where they'll say as a precaution they'll ask you to stop eating 10 minutes before dawn kicks in. Why won't they tell me to delay my iftar 10 minutes later as a precaution? Because it's the same data that they're relying on. Because the thing is that science, mathematics is such that if you're doing a degree and you're really good, maths is the best degree you can do. Seriously. You know why? You can't get it wrong. If you
It's set in stone.
Yeah? It's always going to be the right answer. It can't be the wrong answer. Yeah? And it's the same with maths. That the data that the majority of data is by Greenwich Observatory. We know when the sun sets, and we know when the dawn begins. Yeah. So you put in the right information, the answer will come. Yeah. I personally go by this a group of brothers. They did this. It's called the Open Fajr Project. What they did was 2 years ago. Has anybody heard of astrophysics? Yeah? There's a camera, laser beam camera that fires a beam to the horizon and it collects the data. So it's very precise data. So it tells us when dawn kicks in and when sun sets. So here their data is not just numbers. It's actually based on empirical evidence as well. And I go by there. I think they did it just outside of Birmingham. Majority of Birmingham mosques, well, all of Birmingham mosques agreed to go by it. Then they went home and found out that it was led by the brothers were Shia, and I laughed. I said, "Why? What's the numbers got to do? If you're Sunni or Shia or Christian or Muslim, numbers don't lie, do they? Or do they? They don't. So find out when the dawn kicks in, and stop when it kicks in. When the sun is set, break your fast. But don't this precaution thing, I find it a bit. I can understand it because it's your ibadah, and you need to begin it on time and you need to end it on time. But my point is that it's the same people who are providing the information.
Sheikh, in Pakistan, sometimes like the azan's gone off for Subah Quran. Often people are eating still, and some people say you shouldn't eat when the azan's going because that means the time's kicked in.
Yeah.
Some people say no, you have until the azan ends. So which?
Right. On that is the azan scenario in our
it's not
situation. It doesn't. But if it did, it's usually the thing is when the time kicks in, because majority of the TV channels or radio stations in this country give the adhan. So what you've got to make sure is that they're giving the adhan on the right time, not before the time. So if you know that they're giving it on the right time, or if you're in that scenario in a Muslim country and the adhan is being given, as long as the food or drink is in your hand, not on your plate though. If you see the difference. So if you got a plate full, I got to finish my food on my plate. No, it's what's in your hands. Finish that. Yeah. But as a precaution, you make sure that the data or the information that you're relying is the right one, and stick with that. That's much better than the adhan.
Sheikh, in regards to iftar, like I have an issue because, especially in the summer, the time on the calendar or the time that everyone's watching the TV, and as soon as the TV is on, then they start eating. But I think I look outside and the sun's nowhere near setting. So, in regards to actual, from like a fiqh standpoint, what is considered sunset?
When the circumference of the earth has disappeared from the horizon. It's literally gone down from the horizon.
So in most cases that hasn't happened when the...
all of us have mobile phones, and the BBC weather app is the best one for Maghrib, because it tells you in your location, your area, literally, your district, what time sunset is, and it get the data it's linked to, you know, the Met Office and GPS and everything. It tells you precisely when the sun has set. Yeah. So I have no problem with, because what we've got is that, you know, when you have scholars who understand, you know, astronomy, and when scholars don't understand, they're literally going by, you know, texts. We had Imam Qurafi, you know, more than 800 years, about 800 years ago, from Cairo, and he was an astronomer. He actually has a whole work on mawqit as-salat, you know, the timings, and he tells you the horizons, the long, God, you know, what's it called?
Longitude?
Latitude and everything. He knows what he's talking about. And he says that, you know, because the calculations are precise. You know, the movement of the sun doesn't just skip. It's precise. And in the day prayers, we actually rely on those. So when it tells us that, you know, the sun's set at such a time, it's set. And what you've got to understand is that, you know, just as in the morning, you know, when sunrise happens, before the sun, you know, comes up, everything gets light. It's the same when the sun sets. Suddenly it's not going to go dark. Do you understand? There is going to be light. But what we've got to make sure is the sun is set. Yeah? And if you look up, you know, how they calculate what their definition of sunset is, that the sun has disappeared from the horizon. It's exactly the same. So when it's sunset, I prefer you know, the app rather than the timetable, because it gets updated all the time. And unless, you know, you live in a really high-rise building where you can see the horizon, you know, the sun has set, you know, we can't actually go outside and see. All we can say, it's gone dark. But then, you know, when it goes dark, it's a long time after it's sunset. Does that make... Yeah? Are we okay on that? Yeah. Okay. 223, 224, 225.
Whoever breaks an obligatory fast must make it up, and in addition pay kafara in Ramadan if done deliberately. 224. By eating, drinking, or having an emission of sperm, even if this was only as a result of thoughts of a sexual nature, or by abandoning the intention upon which the fast is based. 225. Without a plausible interpretation, and it is licit to break it if it harms one's health, or when on a journey for a licit purpose, during which one would shorten the salah.
Okay. Now, here is when, you know, you break a fard and you have to make a qada. Now, when you break a fast, you will always have to make up a fast for wajib. If you broke, you know, your fast out of forgetfulness or mistake in your calculation, for instance, you know, you believe that, you know, the sun is set, or that, you know, dawn hasn't kicked in, or you miscalculated, when the month began, the beginning of it or the end of it, or you broke it out on purpose. It doesn't matter how you broke it, you will have to make up, the fast. Now, there's a wajib, there's scenarios where it will be an obligation for you to break a fast. That is when you are ill, meaning that you fear for your very life, or it would be permitted for you to break a fast if you're on a journey, or it would be recommended for you that you break a fast if you are a mujahid, or that you believe that you would if you didn't break your fast, you would lose your strength, or in this scenario it might become haram, or out of ignorance, someone put some food down your throat or water while you were asleep, and it can be you were forced into it, you did it deliberately, or you had sexual intercourse, there was emission of semen, or during the day you broke your intention, or you ate or drank something. Now, it doesn't matter if something reached your stomach through your throat, or any of the other openings, be they loose or open, they would obligate a fast in all those scenarios. And it's including the fast of Ramadan, the obligatory fast of Ramadan, or an obligatory fast of another nature, where, for instance, you've taken an oath that you'll fast or do something, then in that context as well. Now, if you broke the fast other than Ramadan, where it was, for instance, out of illness or out of menstrual bleeding, there's two opinions. Do you make it up or not make it up? Also, if you forget, we're talking about the non-mandatory fast. If you forget that you're fasting, again, two positions. So what's understood from this is that for Ramadan there's no second opinion. You will always have to make up the fast. As to other than Ramadan, there's two. As to when you are compensating for making up the obligatory fast, we're going to cover that in the next two verses. But you will always as an obligation have to make up, even if this for the men it isn't, but sometimes depends on the mentality of the man. If a woman is coerced or forced to break her fast, or if a man is forced, for instance, in China, I don't know if you followed the news last year. I followed it for the last 2 years now. That they force the Muslim students to break their fasts. Those people, that they will only have to. That there wouldn't be any compensation for those because it's beyond their control. And where someone is, forced to, foreplay or, on purpose, have, discharge of semen or intercourse, we're going to, cover that soon in a minute. But what you've got to understand is that, you need to have an excuse. Even in English we say this is far-fetched. So what do we mean by that? When someone comes up with unbelievable, yeah. So the whole idea is that if you can't convince yourself, how are you going to convince God? Yeah. Before we move on to that, the scenarios that we covered were dealing with Ramadan, with other than Ramadan. If someone does, out of forgetfulness or on purpose, they would, only make up that fast, not, have to pay compensation and so on and so forth. Right, there's I haven't come up with an English equivalent to, ta'wil al-kareeb, an acceptable excuse. I think that would do for now. Yeah, and the other one is a far-fetched excuse. So the acceptable one is that you open your fast out of forgetfulness, or your menstruation stops before Fajr, but you don't take the ghusl till after Fajr, or you do suhoor near to Fajr, or you arrive at night, or you begin the journey, you do, your journey is less than the distance in which you shorten your prayer, or you see Shawwal, the crescent of Shawwal in the day, and you think that everyone else has, and you break the fast because it's permitted for you. Now, in all these scenarios, there's no kafara, because it's not far-fetched. It's an acceptable excuse. Now the far-fetched ones are that you see the crescent and your testimony is not accepted, but you break the fast. You break your fast because you have a fever, or you think that it's going to come. You're going to get a fever. Because you know that your menstrual period begins at such a time, so you automatically think it's going to begin, so you don't fast, and it doesn't come. Or you hear this hadith that whoever has, what hijama is, cupping.
Yeah.
So there's a hadith that whoever's cupped and the one who's had it cupped has broken the fast. So you broke your fast. Or you slander. You hear that whoever slanders has no fast.
So hijama can't be done whilst fasting?
It's discouraged. It won't break your fast. Because you see, there's nothing technically breaking your fast, is it? Because there's blood. For instance, you go to the doctor and they want to take, test your blood. So is that going to break your fast? No. So cupping, but why it's discouraged is because it'll weaken you. Because how they traditionally do it is wet cupping, and they let it bleed till it naturally stops, and that's going to weaken you while in the state of fasting. It's not going to break your fast. So Sidi Mayara says, all of these are null and void. You'll have to pay compensation and do the qada. Someone who's forced to, eat and drink, like the Chinese, there's no kafara. They will just do the fast, make up the fast. Someone who's ignorant, there's no kafara for them. Someone who's new, to the deen, they don't know that I need to fast, for the whole day. Because they're new to the deen, they'll be excused. For instance, the same thing would happen in their scenario if, because they don't know, they have sexual intercourse. They won't be asked to give kafara. But again, the condition is that they're new to the deen. They're ignorant. And I personally, a lot of our young who come back to the deen, I make no difference. Because they're in the same boat. Because they don't know. So we can't, there's a side note. I always have a rant, so please excuse me. It's the old age that this time that wasted. Seriously, time is wasted where we send the young to the mosque, and they only. It's not an obligation upon them to learn the Quran. they're only under obligation to learn Fatiha and a surah. But it's an obligation upon them to know the Daruri fi Din. You know, the personal obligatory aspects of the Deen, especially, you know, belief. The belief in God, the Messenger. You know, the 3 aspects of Aqidah we covered. What's obligatory to believe about God, what's impossible to believe about God, what's intrinsically possible, and then with the Rasul. Those are things that, you know, the youth and the young should be taught. Again, end of rant. Are we okay so far? Yeah? Okay. Where, you know, you're permitted to break your fast when you're on a journey. Now, this is where there's, you know, harm attached to fasting. Or you think that, you know, on this journey, if I fast, I'm going to, you know, harm myself. And the journey has to be, the minimum is the distance-wise in which the prayer can be shortened. So that's, you know, 50 English miles.
How much?
50.
50?
Yeah, not 48. It's 48 Arabic miles.
Oh.
Yeah. There's only 2 mile difference, but, you know, it's... So the fear can be, you know, for instance, you're ill and you know that, you know, on this journey my illness will get worse. Or, you know, there's hardship involved because of this illness. Or fasting will weaken me with this illness. Or that, you know, is a burden that I'm unable to bear. So Sidi Mayara says that the deen of God is ease. Yeah? So in those scenarios, you will, you know, shorten. I mean, not fast. But there's genuine hardship involved. Yeah? Genuine, not, you know, khiyali pilawni. You know, it's not something that you think, but there's genuine. I used to get this, you know, someone I know, you know, from another city, he would say that I need to catch a, for instance, you know, from Nottingham to London, I need to catch a coach, and can I break my fast? You're sitting in a coach. You know, you're sitting in a coach. If you're catching a train, you're sitting in a train. Now, how is that making your journey? Yeah. Is there any difficulty in, you know, if you're fasting and if you're sitting at your office or at home, what's the difficulty now? Do you understand? So there needs to be real, genuine physical difficulty involved. Now, if there's, you know, fear that, you know, you're going to be robbed, or that, you know, the fast is going to physically harm you, yeah, then it would be haram for you to fast. Yeah, it would be haram for you to carry on fasting. Now, Sidi Mayara quotes Imam Malik from the Mudawwana. He says that when you travel a journey in which you're permitted to shorten your prayer, he says it's up to you that you break your fast, and it's up to you that you don't break your fast. But he says, I'd prefer that you fast. Now, Sidi Khalil says that, when you're on a journey and you're stopping for a couple of days. Now, if you're there for a day or two, you don't fast until you make the intention that I'm staying here for 4 days. Then it's necessary for him or her to fast.
4 days, yeah.
4 days. Because with us, you're a traveller for 4 days. But if you make the intention, I'm staying, for more than 4 days, then you're not a traveller. But the intention is important.
Is that 4 days since when you started travelling, or since when you've been in that location?
That location. Because when you're travelling, you're a traveller.
Yeah.
So when you arrive at a location and you haven't made an intention that I'm staying here for 4 days, then a day or two you're permitted to break your fast. Now there are 3 conditions that need to be met for you to break your fast when you're on a journey. The first of those is that the journey has to be in which the prayer can be shortened. And the distance has to be, in one go. It can't be that, you stop somewhere for 20 miles and then you carry on and complete the rest of 30 miles. It's one go, 50 miles. Otherwise you wouldn't be permitted to break your fast. And if you did break it, then you would fall under the scenario of acceptable excuse. So you would just make up the fast. The second condition is that the journey has to begin before Fajr. So it has to be before Fajr. Now, if you begin it now you can. Now, if dawn begins and you begin your journey, you shouldn't. So if you begin your journey after dawn, you don't break your fast. You have to begin the journey before dawn kicks in. You won't. So any journey that's begun after Fajr has kicked in, you won't break the fast except out of need. I hate using this word, but this is what our jurists say. If you break your fast before you set out on the journey, Sidi Khalil says kafara. you've disbelieved. Now, if you break your fast after you've begun the journey, then you only have to make qada. Do you understand the reason why Sidi Khalil has used the K word? No? You're still resident. It's still an obligation. To deny an obligation with full knowledge is the K word.
So, if you, let's say you've still got your fast, you then go on a journey. So let's say at Zuhur time, you then start your journey.
Yeah.
You still got your fast.
Yeah.
And then it's getting a bit difficult, and your journey's 100 miles or something.
Yeah.
And then, can you break your fast then?
Yeah, lit darura, if there's need.
If there is a need.
If there is a need, it's not a problem.
If there isn't a need.
If there isn't a need,
so
if there's a need, the whole look, this is why Sidi Miyara quoted Imam Malik radhiallahu anhu. He said that you're permitted to break your fast when you're on a permitted journey, when you travel the distance in which you can shorten your prayer. Yeah. If you break it, it's up to you. If you don't break it, it's up to you. But he prefers it that you don't break it. But the madhab says, if there's a need, if you begin the journey before the obligation has kicked in, you're a traveller, you're not under obligation. But because you're still resident, the obligation has kicked in now. Yeah? Now you begin the journey. Now, because the journey is so long, if there's a need...
There's a need, yeah.
Fine, fair enough.
Otherwise you're still under that same obligation.
No, because the obligation began,
when you were at home.
Yeah. Where there's no need, there's no need. Because if you do it, then you've got to come up with another date.
So for example, if you have a flight, let's say at like 10 in the morning, you should still, for that day, make intention to fast.
Yes. Because you're still resident.
And catch the flight, and then only if you start to struggle on that journey, then break your fast.
Break it.
But what if you know like full well that you're going to struggle? So for example, let's say you've done that journey before, still fast and then just break it.
Yeah.
And even in regards to breaking it, do you only do it once you start to struggle, or just...
Start to struggle. Because what you've got to understand is that, you see, no one else is going to stand in front of God. You have to stand in front of God and answer for your obligations. Because why this text only deals with the obligatory aspects is because the obligations are the ones that we have to answer for. And no one else is going to answer for them but you. Yeah? Now, when you struggle, valid excuse. Why couldn't you fast that day? It was difficult. Valid. I thought I would struggle that day because in a previous journey I struggled. But today is a different day. Today is a different day. You might not struggle. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So you need to, this is why, Sidi Mayara said, I'm the author of the poem. He says, Qawl al-Ba'id, far-fetched excuse. Yeah? Qawl al-Kareeb, acceptable excuse. So, if you can't convince yourself, how are you going to convince God? So your excuse, your reason, must be something that you can convince yourself. Now, if any reasonable man, forget about Muslim or non-Muslim, just get a non-Muslim there saying, look, I went on this journey and I struggled, and I'm going to do the same journey again. I think I will struggle again. What do you think I'll do? What will be the answer? impartial answer, what do you think would be?
You mean what the person would do?
Yeah.
Most people wouldn't.
No, most people will. I'm talking about, they would say that, that journey is not going to be the same as this journey.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this is a different journey.
Different journey,
Yeah. Because I know we're creatures of habit. Human beings are creatures of habit. But the whole thing is that every day is a different day. Yeah? This is the thing, that every day is always a different day. I know this won't make sense, but what's your name again? Wasim.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Wasim, when you walked in today, is it the same Wasim that came and sat here? Or is it a different Wasim now?
It's the same me.
No, it's a different one. Because that Wasim, that moment is gone. That moment has gone. We're in present now. You see, even the past tense doesn't exist, it's the past. The present is the point that we need to be always in. And the problem that we have, as a species, and especially, Muslims, we live, majority of our lives are spent in the past. Yeah? And if you got any kind of, intelligence, you spend it in the future. Always thinking of what tomorrow or what I'm going to do. Always planning. But we forget the moment. Yeah. So the moment is the moment that does not have a past or present. It's always present. It's always here. And the thing is, with God, what counts is that you're here. So what happened last time happened, mate. Doesn't mean the same one's going to happen again. Does it make sense? Or is it too philosophical? Does it make sense? Yeah? Okay. So what you do is that, if rule of thumb, if you're going on a journey, if your journey begins before the fast begins, then you don't have to fast. Yeah? If the journey is going to begin after the fast has begun, begin your fast. Don't break it unless it's too difficult. Then break it.
How do we know when a journey's begun? Because different scholars have, I think, different opinions on this. I don't know, maybe. But has a journey begun when we've left our town? Or has a journey begun when we've left our house? Or when we've made the intention to leave and we're getting ready?
Okay, we're saying, early on we talked about intention. What does intention mean?
You're going to do something.
No, you know what you're doing. Not going to. You know what you're doing.
Okay, you know what you're doing.
You know what you're doing. Yeah? So you know when your journey begins. When you get out of the house and close the door, your journey's begun. Mm-hmm. You know this thing that before were small townships. You know this thing that to say that because the fields of the township have disappeared, I've left the city. We've got to, this thing of the present. We've got to live in the present. Yeah, we know when we leave the house, I'm going. It's like before I leave the house, I know I'm going somewhere.
So even then, you'd be a traveller.
No, because you've begun the journey.
Oh.
Do you understand? Yeah. When you get in your car, or you close the door, or your bike, or whatever you're doing, your journey's begun, and it won't finish till you come, till you reach what your destination. Yeah, and Imam Malik radhiyallahu anhu in the Mudawwana says that if you begin it before Fajr, yaftar, you break it. You don't need to keep it. Okay. The final one, beginning the fast from the night, when we began this, for the traveller that does not exist. Now, if he does begin it from the night and then he breaks it without an excuse, they've got to make up the fast and pay compensation. Does that make sense? Does it make sense? It's 2:45. Do you want to take a break? Or we've literally got 3 verses left. Book of fasting is done. Your choice. Bismillah. What do you want to do? Finish it, take a break, pray Dhuhr, come back.
Sounds good, yeah. It's only 3 verses.
What? Finish it?
We might as well finish it. And then
finish it?
we can.
Okay. 2:26 then.
Sorry, there was one more condition. I don't know, there was 3.
No, that was the third one.
Oh.
The third one was that, if you make the intention from the night in your journey for the fast, and then you break it without an excuse, you have to pay qada and kafara. (226).
226. It is prohibited to break a nafila fast deliberately without illness. If it is broken, however, one must make it up, but not on account of something else, i.e. for forgetfulness.
Okay. Now, this is interesting. This is, the nafil fast. Because we've talked about, the wajib fast, breaking it on purpose or out of forgetfulness. And for wajib, there will always be a qada, regardless. You will always have to make up that fast. And there are conditions for kafara. We'll cover those after this verse. Now, as to the non-fard fast, the exception here, it's I always get told that if you're fasting and you get invited to someone's house and they force you to break your fast, you fast. I said, don't go. Don't put yourself in a situation where you have to break your nafil fast. Yeah, there are certain occasions where you have to. He's looking through. Oh, he's moved on. Yeah. There are exceptions to the rule. There are 2 exceptions. You can break it for your parents, nafil fast. If your parents, because of their attachment to you, their love, You haven't seen them for God knows how long. Whatever the scenario. Yeah. Whatever the scenario, you can break your nafil fast for your parents. Also for your sheikh, your teacher. And there's no difference made if the teacher is, spiritual teacher or, Shari knowledge teacher. Now, would you have to make it up if you broke it for these two? Keep in mind it's a nafil fast. It's not a trick question.
There's no need.
There's no need. There's no need.
If in the instance of a wedding, and if you're used to fast on Mondays, and the wedding invitation is on that Monday or any Monday, would you go to the wedding and break the fast, or don't fast? Or
there is you accept the invitation, yeah, because the whole thing is of not accepting the invitation of the walima. Doesn't mean you have to go. That's the technicality. Yeah, but it's to do with your fast, not, don't use it in any other instances. It's to do with your fast. But the thing is that the fast on Monday or Tuesday, Monday and Thursday, there are different cycles people use. Imam Malik radhiyallahu anhu preferred the beginning and the end of the month, because there's either Monday and Thursday, or the white nights, of the month, the odd nights of the month, or the beginning and the end of the month. Now the beauty of the beginning and the end of the month, which Imam Malik fasted, means that you actually are perpetually fasting. It's a perpetual fast. The Prophet ﷺ forbade the perpetual fast, but if you fast the beginning and the end, it's perpetual, because everything else gets sandwiched. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah.
So I would accept the invitation.
Don't go. Yeah. But the thing is that depends on whose fast it is as well. Whose wedding it is. There are certain people that you will have to go, and there are certain people that you can make excuses.
Mm-hmm.
You know your situation better than. There isn't something that fuqaha will spend time unless you're a Hanafi. Working things out. So you know your situation better than others. But the scenario of where you will break the nafil fast and you won't have to make it up is where there's that intimate attachment with your parent, with your teacher. We don't mean your university or school teacher, someone that you do have some kind of attachment to.
Even in the instance of husband and wife.
Mm. Oh, husband and wife gets tricky. It's a bit. If the wife needs to seek the permission from the husband to fast a nafil fast, not a fard wajib fast, but a nafil fast. Because do you understand what I'm trying to say? Yeah. That then if he wants something from the wife, she can refuse if he gives permission. Yeah. But where she has fasted without his permission, he can force himself. I know it's a bit crass, but that's how the cookie crumbles.
Is a nafil fast, is the terminology the same as a mandoob fast?
Okay, we'll see. What does mandoob mean?
Recommended.
What does nafil mean?
Voluntary.
Okay, so if you were categorizing things, where would nafil and mandoob fall?
Mandoob is between nafil and wajib.
It's exactly the same. Nafil and mandoob is the same. Different category of nafil. Mandoob is a recommended category of nafil. The categorization is only two. There's a wajib and a nafil, and then the nafil has sunnah muakkada and mandoob.
So if you did break it for whatever reason, you don't have to make it up.
No, those two categories you don't. The others you would. Those are the two exceptions, and those are has its own reasons. You don't upset your parents. You don't upset your sheikh. People will disagree, but the parents, no one will disagree. Okay. Are we okay on the nafil fast? Nafil fast, like nafil ibadah, the madhab doesn't. It does lay stress on certain days, but nafil, we don't have that. You can't fast those days apart from the two Eids. We don't have this thing that you can't fast on a Friday.
Right.
We don't have it. You can fast it. Okay. 227 and 228. These are the last two for the fast, inshallah.
Okay. 227. And kafara is paid by fasting 2 consecutive months or freeing a Muslim slave. 228. The fuqaha have preferred that one feed 60 poor people, that is a mud of the most widely used food, to each destitute person.
Okay. Now, the kafara is the obligation, compensation, is out of one of these three. Either you fast 2 consecutive months. The word consecutive, you need to understand what consecutive means. You know what consecutive means?
Continuous.
Yes, no gap. Yeah. Or freeing a slave, again a Muslim slave, or feeding 60 people, each one with a mud of the Prophet ﷺ, preferably what's eaten in that country. Okay. Now, what's the best out of these three? And there's no difference made between, if it's someone poor or rich. Yeah. If they've broken their fast due to intercourse, or something else more intense. you always meaning that you don't look at their financial situation when it comes to what compensation they pay. And the compensation is the same for everyone, and it doesn't matter for what reason they broke their fast. As to breaking the slave,
freeing the slave.
Yeah, not breaking. It's breaking the fast. Freeing the slave. It has to. Is everybody familiar with when you sacrifice a sacrificial animal? It has to be whole, perfect as possible. Why?
So, because it shows your sincerity?
It's an act of worship. It's an act of worship. So you don't do things, by half. You do them perfectly. So you use a perfect specimen to sacrifice in the name of God. It's the same when you are freeing a slave. It has to be, a perfect specimen, not an old lame or blind or limping man. It has to be perfect. It should be free from all faults. Yeah. And then when you were fasting, I should have done this first. The fasting, the 2 consecutive months has to be, if you break, for instance, you fasted, there's only 1 day left, and you break. Start again. Consecutive. Yeah. Now, the final one, feeding 60 people. It means feeding 60 people. It does not mean feeding one person for 60 days. Yeah, it means 60. If you give, if you give a bit extra, it's better. You don't have to. Yeah. But the preference of the madhab is on this, rather than fasting 2 consecutive months or freeing a slave. The preference is on this. Now, there's a mercy attached to this. The consecutive months, if you get it wrong, you'll be there for some time. Majority of people, there aren't that many slaves to free anyway. The 60 is that more people benefit by this than when you fast for yourself. When you free 1 person. But when you feed 60 people, there's 60 people. Ideally in your locality. Go on.
I was going to say, how do we go about doing this in modern times? Like, for example, here, we will struggle to find 60 people who are really desperate for...
No, there isn't.
I was going to ask that as well.
No, there isn't. Why do you think we've got so many food banks? There are poor people. What you've got to do is cook a meal, get people.
So you have to actually do the physical act rather than, for example, donating money to a charity.
You can do it. You can do it. But there's enough refugees. There's enough asylum seekers. You just got to contact the right people. Even the soup kitchens. There's enough soup kitchens everywhere.
Sheikh, how's miskin defined here? As in zakat?
Same as zakat.
Okay.
Abject poor. So the homeless fall in that category. So the soup kitchens would be much better. Yeah, or the asylum seekers. Yeah. Now there are a lot of issues that have not been covered. Itikaf, Tarawih. We covered Tarawih, didn't we? Itikaf I will touch, and Laylatul Qadr. But what we'll do is we'll take a break and we'll come back. So we'll go over Itikaf and Laylatul Qadr, and then we'll begin with Kitab al-Hajj. We'll pray Dhuhr first, and then we can, from Dhuhr, how long do you want after?
Same as last time.
Yeah?
Was it half an hour?
Half an hour? Okay. So, who needs to do with it?